In today's video, I'm going to explain exactly how long it's going to take you to go from 30% body fat down to 15% body fat. I'm even going to break down what your diet should look like and what your cardio should look like when you get started. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Paul Ravella from ProPhysique.com, and today's question is from my Instagram. I got a great question from a guy who's about 42 years old, about 220 pounds, and he says he's about 30% body fat, and he just wants to know how long it's going to take him to get to that 15% mark. And if you're watching this video, I'm a coach, and this is what I do for a living. I help people reach their fat loss goals while putting on muscle and making sure that when they reach their fat loss goals, they're able to sustain it. So we're going to talk about best real world practices. We're going to get into the actual numbers of this and break it down. And I'm going to give you some tools at the end of the video so you can just get this process started. So first things first, my man here is 42 years old. Okay. He's got a fat mass of 66 pounds. We took his 220 pounds of body weight, multiplied that times 0.30 to get the 30%. And what that leaves us with is 154 pounds of fat-free mass. So now that I know his fat-free mass, I can actually start to calculate what he's going to weigh when he is about, you guessed it, 15% body fat. Now, why is this significant? Well, first of all, we don't want to lose lean body mass while dieting. There are some very specific strategies that I'm going to break down on how to do that. But the goal should be we want to lose body fat, not just weight. Anybody who's going on a weight loss diet, but is not taking into consideration that they need to keep their muscle or even add some muscle, is going to end up in a terrible position. Okay, you're seeing the results of people being on GLP-1s that are just under eating, they're not lifting, and when they come off these drugs, the rebounds are horrific. As a coach, this is something that I've seen for many years through different practices like drastic hardcore dieting that can cause these body fat rebounding effects. So let's talk about step 2. Now that we know what our target is, okay, we know that he's 154 pounds of fat-free mass. What we're going to do is divide that by 0.85. That will give us the 15% body fat mark. That means our target body weight is going to be about 181 pounds. And if you start at 220 pounds and you get down to 181 pounds, and this guy says he's about 5'10", I promise you, that's going to be a life-changing look and difference, okay? That is going to be a body fat percentage that gets very, very noticeable. You're going to feel better. You're going to sleep better. You're going to perform better at anything that you're doing outside of the gym if you have like an activity that you like to do. All right, so let's talk about the next step is determining how long this is going to take us. Okay, so if we take a very, very conservative approach and we're focusing on losing about a pound per week, that's going to take 39 weeks, roughly 9 months. Now, most people are going to balk at this, right? And I think for good reason, because as men, we're able to lose body fat much quicker than a pound per week when we're 220 pounds. Actually, the research shows that it's pretty safe to lose about 1% of your body weight per week for a lean individual. So for somebody that's quite overweight, 40 pounds away from 15%, I think it's pretty safe to assume that we can get down here into the 2 pounds per week average, which would be 19 weeks, but there's a caveat. I want to show you the results of what I've seen. So we run a transformation challenge, which runs about 90 days, which is just about 12 weeks. And we regularly see men that lose between 30 and 40 pounds. I'm going to show Shane Benton right here, who lost more than 30 pounds in 12 weeks. I'm also going to show you Dan Devine, who lost more than 30 pounds in 12 weeks. Now, they were very focused on their craft. And so they were able to get into this range of 3 pounds per week. But why? Well, when men start paying attention to their diet, they start making their training, their nutrition, their cardio all match. They focus on their recovery. We start to get the benefit of recomping, right? A little bit more muscle starts to move body fat even quicker. And so through the course of the plan, they'll actually start to see about 3 pounds per week come off. And this is where I want to get into this. Reality. For most of us, at the beginning of a fat loss phase, we're going to see some pretty significant changes, especially if we haven't tried to lose body fat in a while. When you add some cardio, when you start packing your meals, when you start hitting your macros, you're going to see a really nice piece of progress to start off. Then you're going to adapt. And that's when most people fail. That's when most people say to me, Coach, my body fat is stubborn. And I have to tell them, body fat is just a cell holding on to some energy inside of it. It is not stubborn. You are stubborn. we are stubborn as humans. We don't want to change the things that we're doing. We don't want to do things like go to bed on time. We don't want to get up early and do some activity. We don't want to pay attention to our calories. We don't want to do things like reduce our alcohol consumption or put our health and priority first. When you do, you can start to get through this adaptation period where your body starts to level off, make that next adjustment, and then we can start to get into some things that I like to call refeeds and diet breaks. Instead of when we get stuck, kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater and just saying, I'm done, I can't handle it, we take a short recovery phase, a couple days with increased calories, reduced cardio, a couple days where we just focus on recovery, increasing the food to kind of kick off this next phase of fat loss. This is where I see the most success. When men hit a wall and they just take a little bit of recovery, it slingshots them into this next phase of fat loss. And that's where we can reach a deadline. Now, the reason I put deadline there in red is because the transformations I showed you with Shane and the transformation I can show you of myself, where I went from someone who was, maybe 20, 25% body fat down to below 10%, close to 5% body fat. The reason I can compare that is because everybody that did this had a deadline. If you don't have a deadline and you're just making this a lifestyle, kudos. I think that's amazing. There's definitely multiple ways to approach this where you can say, hey, this month I'd just like to drop 2 or 3 pounds. Some people are looking at this and going, man, I just want to get it over with. So what I want to talk to you about is once you focus and pick an option, the deadline, how do we come out of that? Because it's not just about reaching the goal, it's about sustaining it. So comment below if you'd like to see the video on how to handle coming out of this type of a diet. And I'm going to help you get that done too, because this for me is a lifestyle approach. This is me at 50 years old, and this is just how I maintain. So understanding that best case scenario, we're looking at 12 to 13 weeks. Worst case scenario, we're looking at, 9 months. Where do you fall in there? Any place is great. And remember, this is the body that you're going to have for the rest of your life. So you don't have to put pressure on yourself. But if you're someone that's like, hey, I'd really like to have this done by summer, I've got an option for you. Right now, you can join our Transformation Challenge. I'm giving away $25,000. It's open worldwide. We also happen to have more than 100 meal plans, training plans, a private support community where I'm going to be answering your questions. This Friday, I have a live video. But when you see amazing transformations like Shane's and Dan's and myself's, those transformations are because we are focused on a deadline and a goal. And yes, we start to prioritize ourselves over other people for a short amount of time. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, hopefully this answers your question. If you want to know how many calories you should be eating, I've also got a free calculator. So I'm going to give you the numbers that I would provide for this person based on the information that my calculator gave, but you can go to prophysique.com/calculator and fill it out for yourself. So my calculator gave out some calories for a fat loss for this person to start at about 2,344 calories. The rough estimate would be around 190 grams of protein, 220 grams of carb, and 75 grams of fat. And if you're curious where those numbers come from, they're all based on the evidence around exercise science and nutrition, all from the research that we have found. And a lot of this, when it comes to protein, if you look, 190 grams of protein, if you just want to know where to start with your protein, think about your goal weight, your target weight, and eat that much protein per day in pounds. And you'll see that that's about where you need to be, okay? And then you can fill in, 220 carb and 75 fat. Those numbers could fluctuate. You could lower the fat down to, say, 60 grams, and then you'd have 15 grams of fat as an added bonus that you could use to the carbs, right? And just understanding that the primary focus needs to be around your diet, hitting your daily calorie goals, and I think protein being the priority is going to make sure you don't lose muscle. Now, you need to do some resistance training. You need to be doing something to maintain muscle throughout this. When it comes to cardio, guys, I do a walk every day for 60 minutes. And if you can fit into your schedule even 30 minutes a day of walking, that's where I would start. And then as you plateau, we can talk about how to increase it. If you're using a walking method like on a treadmill, you can increase the incline and speed as your body adapts. If you're walking outside, you can increase the speed and the distance. But there's multiple ways to do this. But understand that our body fat is not stubborn. Our body fat wants to do what we want it to do, but we have to change and listen to what's happening to our bodies. That's where coaching comes in. And if you're looking for a coach and you just need someone to help you one-on-one, use the link below and schedule a free consult with me. All right, guys, I hope you're having a great start to your week. Let's make 2026 great. Join me in the challenge if you'd like. Otherwise, hopefully this helped.